the COVID digital certificate and the fact that non-essential international travel officially, of course, resumed yesterday. Some of those fully vaccinated now planning trips abroad over the next couple of weeks, but doesn't seem necessarily as straightforward as you might think. 53106 if you want to get in touch with us. Reporter with the Irish Independent, Gabija Gataveckaite, is with us too here on Lunchtime Live. I was just reading your piece in the Irish Independent today. You're supposed to be travelling to Lithuania at the weekend. What's the story?
So what is the story? That is a good question. So I'm sitting on my hands and I'm waiting for my digital cert to arrive. I was vaccinated through my GP. Now, my GP also does have my email address, so it may very well land into the email. But of course, as we heard, last week's government said, everyone who will get their cert through the email, they'll have it by Thursday, and it's no sign of mine, so I'm waiting for it in the post. I'll be travelling with my mum, who is fully vaccinated, and she got her cert. She got vaccinated in the mass vaccination centre, and then my dad will join us a week later. He actually got his cert first. He was also vaccinated in the vaccination centre. But I'm not the only one in the same boat, because, of course, the digital COVID cert helpline was set up. There was an emergency one last week. The phone call centre began operating yesterday, and as many other people, I tried to make a phone call, and to no avail. The call centre completely overwhelmed with queries, and actually every single time that I rang them yesterday, my call wasn't even connected.
So you were ringing the helpline, the call doesn't connect, and now they've set up, of course, this new helpline. Is that any way more helpful? Well,
I was trying to get through to it this morning. We've had some success in that. Initially, yesterday when I rang the number, it just said call failed. So the call didn't connect at all. Now, when I rang the first helpline number this morning, the call actually is connecting. It's ringing maybe 2 or 3 times, and then it cuts off. And actually the same happens with the new helpline number also. Now, some people that I have been speaking to have actually gotten through to speak to an operator. They've had, we're hearing they're waiting hours upon hours. People saying they're waiting 2 hours. Somebody I was speaking to yesterday said they waited 3.5 hours to speak to an operator, finally getting through. But actually, myself and among many other people, we're not even getting through to the menu to select what your issue is, because the call actually isn't even connecting.
Because I thought this new helpline was able to take, were they talking about nearly 22,000 calls? So it should mean really that, people like you and callers, Gabby, you should be able to get to speak to someone.
Yeah, so the Minister of State, Robert Troy, did tweet this morning saying that the new helpline will be able to take 22,000 calls. I mean, if you think about it, so the helpline was set up, for recovered people. If you are looking to travel and get an EU digital cert on the basis of having recovered from the virus, you are supposed to ring this helpline and ask for your cert. It will then take 5 days, up to 5 days, for cert to be issued. But if you have any problems with the certificate, for example, your name is misspelled, or maybe you're travelling in the coming days and you don't have the certificate, like a lot of people, like myself, I'm travelling in a matter of days now and I still don't have it. You are also, advised to ring the helpline. So when you think about it, the capacity, really ends up being quite a lot of people that are looking to head out, no sign of the cert, and they're ringing the helpline and they're really getting nowhere.
You're due to go to Lithuania, Gabby, is it?
Yes, that's where I'm from. It's where my family live. My parents still live in Ireland, and they live in Roscommon. I live in Dublin, but my grandmother, my aunts, my uncles, they all live in Lithuania. The last time I saw them was for several days last February 2020, for a funeral, so it wasn't exactly a very nice reason to see them. And so, I miss them all. My grandmother, she's 83, she's been fully vaccinated for months, and I'm crying out to see her, and this is just another kind of hurdle in the process. Now, it's very important to say that you can still travel if you don't have your digital cert. You will have to use the HSC, the little card that you get when you are vaccinated. But I suppose the whole point of the digital cert is that it's designed to speed up times in the airport. Certainly that's what the Minister of State, Eoghan Smith, has been telling us. So, does it mean that I'm going to have to be stuck in queues for longer in the airport? I don't know, I guess it remains to be seen.
Stay with us, Gabby. The editor of Air and Travel magazine, Eoghan Corry, is with us too here on Lunchtime Live. Eoghan, are you hearing similar stories to Gabby?
It's so common, Andrea, it's not funny. The helpline, there was an emergency facility put in from Tuesday of last week, and we were told capacity would be stepped up for yesterday. We all sat back with bated breath, and it was 2 hours, people waiting 2 hours that got connected, and then automatically disconnected. Havoc. A lot of the communication of this was only ring the helpline if you were recovered from COVID, as Gabby says. But the huge number of people awaiting their digital COVID certificate are stressed to the gills, and they were ringing to say, what do I do? The answer, very simply, to what you do is you travel with your COVID, the piece of paper you're given that's signed and has a batch number on it. That has been accepted by the airlines on the ground and by immigration authorities. Remember, this is only for travelling within the European Union. It comes with a word of caution. It's not been legislated for. It's just what's happening on the ground. But in the age of Twitter, the nearest thing to legislation is a tweet from a minister. And Oisin Smith tweeted yesterday, more or less, to bring your signed certificate, your signed paper, certificate is the wrong word, your signed piece of paper you were given with your second vaccination. It has all the information on it that immigration authorities need, and airlines will allow you to board. That's what's happening on the ground.
So does that effectively mean, Gabby, you can head off on Thursday with the little, not certificate, but piece of paper that you got when you got vaccinated?
Yeah, and that's looking like what I'll have to do, and yeah, absolutely. Or you can do, antigen tests or a PCR test. I'm not sure what test is going to accept, but pretty sure it's antigen, and I can get a digital certificate on those grounds. I suppose I want to start because, like Oisin said, has told us it's going to speed up your times in the airport. It's kind of your passport to get in the way, and that's why I would like to have it, to make sure that I have it, proof, just in case, even if you place your vaccine card, for example, if you have a photograph on your phone of that cert and you have that barcode, that QR code, you're good to go. But I guess I obviously just prefer to have a solid document as opposed to something that I got from my GP, really.
Does it add to the maybe fear or frustration or anxiety around travelling, Gabby, at the minute?
Yeah, absolutely, and I certainly can sense that from the people that I've been speaking to who are dying to get away. I was speaking to a woman yesterday, and she said, "Look, I'm travelling on Thursday. My husband has a cert. Their children are coming with them. She's been ringing the helpline trying to get through. I think she said she's rang them about 15 times, no success. And she said, look, I'll do a PCR test, anything just to get me on my way. But if you think about it now, travelling as a whole is, it's always been quite, an ordeal. So you have your passport, you have, if you need a visa, maybe you don't, obviously, for Europe, you have your bags packed, you have to make sure all your ducks in a row. But actually now, not only do you need your passport and all your luggage, make sure you have all your things, but you need to have, ideally, this digital certificate and also a passenger locator form. So that's 2 extra pieces of documentation that you now need. And, especially for older people or maybe people who are, it's difficult to keep track of all that. What is the country that I'm going to? What do they accept? You have to make sure that you know what the guidelines are wherever you are travelling. And all that is an extra layer of stress for people. And even for myself, as a political reporter, I do cover all this. I know, what's kind of going on, but it's very hard to keep track of it all. And actually, when it comes down to the wire of, okay, I need to travel, you're kind of thinking, what do I actually need? And getting all your documents. And of course, if you check in your boarding pass, of course, you need that as well. So if you're thinking of it now, that's 4 pieces of documentation you now need when just go on a flight.
Stay with us, Gabby, and Eoghan Corry as well from the Air and Travel magazine. Caroline, actually, in Shankill, has got in contact and says, just please say to your caller that both my husband and my son were both vaccinated by the doctors and they received their certs in the post yesterday and today, respectively. They're on their way. I was jabbed at the Aviva. I got mine last week by email. I hope this helps to ease her worries. David is with us too on the line in Galway. David, I believe you've some advice for Gabby.
Yeah, I was just saying there that if you download the COVID tracker, there's a part on the top of it which will tell you to register by your digital passport, and it all comes up on that then, all your details when you weren't vaccinated and so forth.
Does that help, Gabby?
Well, I have my COVID tracker on my phone. As far as I understood, I said yes. So it says, I'm just clicking on it now. So yeah.
Is it the updated one you have?
Yes, so it should be the updated version. It just says that I have to register my EU digital COVID certificate, and it tells me to scan it. But of course, I don't have it in front of me to scan.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's the paper one. I had.
What the COVID tracker app is used for. You only store the digital COVID cert, so you actually have to have it already
to be able to scan it.
Yeah.
What, did you have this issue, David, yourself?
No, I just updated my tracker and everything came up, so there's no issues at all with it.
It came up automatically?
Yeah, I have the paper form, but I've also got the little card as well. And I was told once I have it there, there's no problems whatsoever.
Okay.
Just to come in there.
Fine Gael Senator to Emer Currie. Emer's with us here as well on Lunchtime Live. Emer, we spoke to Andrew, one of our callers here on the programme yesterday. He's from Derry. He was having an issue as well with his digital pass. Just take a listen to what he had to say.
I'm glad to hear that it's something that's going to work for millions of people. Unfortunately, I'm not included in those millions of people. So the news this morning has been that Irish passport holders, Irish citizens from the north of Ireland, will not be able to avail of the EU digital green cert, notwithstanding the fact that they're fully vaccinated and the fact that they obviously hold Irish passports. And the reason that's been cited for that is that the government in Dublin won't be able to, I suppose, verify their vaccination status because they were vaccinated in the north. And it's something that really came as a bit of a surprise in a sense, because it was only last week that Micheál Martin and other senior ministers were coming out and saying that they didn't anticipate an issue.
Oh, Corrie, the one thing I take from chatting to yourself and Gabby and and even more texts coming into us here on the Newstalk text line today, that there just seems to be a lot of confusion around this.
You can actually talk up the confusion. It's very, very simple for that cohort that have the full course of vaccination and children under 12. And the rollout of the digital COVID cert since last Tuesday has been awesome. What David says is absolutely true. If you have your QR code, you scan it into your COVID tracker. It's one way of storing it on your phone. Another way is to put it into the wallet app. And there are Android versions as well. The key to it all is that you have to have that QR code for all these wonderful gathering together. Gabby talked about the pieces of information. It's on you have a QR code for your boarding pass. You tap the top of it, the QR code for your digital COVID certificate comes up. It's a very clean scanned straight in at the gate. Where people have not got the digital COVID cert, there is a facility when you're checking in with Ryanair and Aer Lingus to upload your COVID documentation. It predates the digital COVID certificate. It was used for test results, your PCR and your antigen test result. Remember, the convergence outbound is antigen is needed outbound, PCR is needed on return. That's if you don't qualify, if you haven't been through your full vaccination. But it is possible to upload that piece of paper I talked about as your COVID documentation, and that goes in as your boarding pass. On the case from Derry, if you have your NHS COVID cert, it's covered by a series of bilateral agreements with Spain, Portugal, places like that. It's possible to upload the QR code from your NHS COVID cert as part of your boarding pass. I know it's complicated, but actually it's quite simple when it works.
Just on that, I think we actually have Senator Emer Currie here with us on the programme. So is that the case for Andrew that spoke to us yesterday, Emer? He will be able to upload that NHS COVID cert?
Hi, Andrea. So the situation, as I'm aware at the moment, is that the North has their COVID-19 vaccine passport, and that has its own green list countries on it. And then we have the digital COVID cert. And at the moment, there isn't clarity completely about how those two are going to align or if they're going to integrate. So myself and other colleagues are still calling for clarity on how this works, and that maybe it will all work out in the end. But my message for quite a few weeks has been, these are the same vaccines, this is the same island, we should have the same opportunities in terms of ease of travel.
So, but is it not just, a fairly simple process? If the likes of Andrew and others have been vaccinated, they're double vaccination, they have their little card like we have here from the HSE, the batch number and the date and when they got it, can it not just be uploaded pretty simply?
Well, you would think that, but I haven't had the green light on that. And there are practical questions that people are asking. Like, for instance, if you depart from Dublin, is that the most important part of this? That if you're
yes.
travelling from Dublin, the rules apply to you like everybody else leaving from Dublin. But if you depart from Belfast,
yes,
are they different? So there are just practical questions that I think people really do need to have answers to. Like, from my perspective, we work really hard to try to make sure that the border affects life on our island as little as possible, whether that's the common travel area, or it's cross-border workers, or it's access to the Erasmus Plus, or the European Health Insurance Card. Like, to me, the digital COVID cert should be no different.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, it's about practicalities, but it's also about principle as
Let me bring in Fred. Fred Duffy's on the line here as well. Fred, I believe you have a similar issue to Gabby.
Yes, I have. My point is that I had a double vaccination in February, and all my friends have received their certificates. I haven't. And to complicate matters, Gabby, I should explain I'm not young anymore. I'm 88, in fact, and so I make mistakes, and I've lost the original, the one that the GP gave me. I've lost that, and I'm travelling on Saturday.
Oh, very good. Where are you going, Fred?
To Canaries.
Good stuff. Are you looking forward to it?
Not at the moment, because I'm not sure if I'm going.
Well, Owen, I hope you're going to be able to help Fred out here, because I don't want Fred not to be able to go to the Canaries on Saturday.
Not ideal, but Fred will need to do his antigen test. People are mixing up the passport with the digital COVID certificate. The issuing authority for the certificate is going to be a health authority. The issuing authority for the passport is going to be the government. Without your piece of paper, it's very straightforward. It's an antigen test for Canaries, 48 hours in advance. It's about €45. It can be done at the airport. The key to it is that you can actually do it on the day of departure. Antigen test, turn up earlier. On return, without proof, you will need a PCR test. It's not as expensive in the Canaries as it is in Ireland, but you behave as if the digital COVID cert that was introduced on Monday has never been introduced, because you don't have access to it. It might land between now and the weekend. Very important point raised by Senator Emer Currie. It's actually the departure airport that makes all the difference in this. So if you're flying from living in Belfast and you fly from Dublin, you're subject to the Irish rules and the Irish bilateral, and you're travelling from within the European Union. That becomes important in a place like Germany, where you have different rules for different parts of Ireland, regions in Ireland. So if you're flying from Cork, you don't need to fill in a locator form arriving in Germany, no matter where in Ireland you live. But if you're flying from Dublin and you come from the Midlands, for instance, which was added to the list on last Sunday, you do have to fill in a locator form.
Does that help, Fred?
I'm travelling from Dublin, and I have in fact made arrangements to get a PCR.
You're fine.
On 48 hours before we fly at Dunleary Docks, Dunleary Marina. There's a Pentex place there. So we're fixed. I think we'll get the PCR.
Yeah. How long are you going for?
Just 10 days.
Fabulous. Well, listen, enjoy it, Fred, and thanks a million for getting in touch with us here on the programme. Eoghan Corry and also Senator Emer Currie and Gabby as well from the Irish Independent. Thank you all for joining us here
a pleasure,
on Lunchtime Live.